11 past with this breaking news and some new insight into that terror attack outside of Moscow. Joining me now, former CIA officer and MSNBC national security and intelligence analyst, Mark Polymeropoulos. What a terrible thing we have to discuss here. We're talking about a branch of the Islamic State in Afghanistan. It is called ISIS-K that claimed responsibility for this attack, Mark, but it has yet to offer any proof. Let me ask you, who is ISIS-K? What are its goals? And why would they carry out a terrorist attack of this magnitude in Russia?
Sure, Alex. Well, ISIS-K, and we can make perhaps a comparison now with college basketball, with March Madness. They are the 1 seed in terrorist groups. This is the A team.
Wow.
General Kurilla, the head of Central Command, in congressional testimony several weeks ago, said that was his biggest concern in terms of external attacks outside of Afghanistan. He actually said he was worried about ISIS-K attacks in Europe. This is an offshoot of kind of the traditional ISIS we all remember from kind of the wars in Syria and Iraq. They have in essence a base in Afghanistan, several thousand fighters, and they are committed to not only attacking U.S. interests but also Russian interests as well. You know, Russia has a long history of oppression of Muslim majority republics in the Northern Caucasus. Russia has fought ISIS in Syria and Iraq, so Russia is in their crosshairs, and it certainly appears this is kind of the work of ISIS-K.
So U.S. officials told NBC News that they were gathering intelligence for months that ISIS or ISIS-K was planning a mass casualty attack in Russia. Both the U.S. Embassy and Moscow were alerted about the threat. Then just a few days ago, as you know, Vladimir Putin dismissed those warnings as being provocative statements. First of all, is it customary for U.S. intelligence agencies to warn Russia about possible terrorist threats? And what does it say about the state of Russia security services that despite these warnings, this attack was pulled off inside their homeland?
Alex, great questions. And I think a lot of Americans would be surprised. And when we do, uncover information about possible terrorist attacks, particularly against civilian targets, we have what's called a duty to warn. And so even with our adversaries, we would pass them this information. We would obviously, protect sources and methods. So whether this was signals intelligence or human intelligence, we're going to make sure that that's protected. But we're going to pass them the information in as much granularity and detail as we can. And back on March 7th, you saw a public announcement from the U.S. Embassy in Moscow, from the State Department, but also privately, we passed this to the Russian security services. Now, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink. So how they action this, we don't know. But the fact is, we passed them the information, and tragically, Russian security services didn't follow up on it or couldn't find the perpetrators. And you raise a really good point. Russian security services are not 10 feet tall, and they were totally incompetent, bloated, corrupt. Kind of in their assessment about the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We've seen now once again that they're not able to protect the Russian people. They're good at cracking down. They're good at cracking down on dissent, but not in terms of their basic function, which is the security of Russians.
Yeah. In his first remarks on the attack, Putin tried to link the incident to Ukraine, alleging without any evidence at all that someone inside Ukraine tried to help the attackers escape across the border from Russia. So look, these two countries obviously at war over Russia's attempted takeover. But what could be Putin's motive for falsely blaming Ukraine for this attack?
So we heard today Vladimir Putin in about a 5-minute address, he mentioned Ukraine. He's claiming that the terrorists were actually trying to get across the border into Ukraine. There's absolutely no evidence for this. And then you also see on Russian TV networks, even over the last hour or two, even some deep fakes that have been generated, which seem to implicate Ukrainian security officials. And of course, this is all nonsense. Why is he doing this? One, of course, to deflect kind of the incompetence of Russian security services, but there are some things that I think Putin can take advantage of with this. Unfortunately, that's additional crackdown on dissent inside Russia, but also the possibility of mobilization. Alex, don't forget, almost 400,000 casualties from the war in Ukraine. That's Russian soldiers killed and injured. They need mobilization. Perhaps something in the days ahead we would see is Vladimir Putin calling for more people to be called up. So he's going to try to take advantage of it. We certainly know it's nonsense. ISIS-K has taken responsibility, but they're going to try to pin some of this on Ukraine for really their own domestic concerns.
So this attack took place at one of the biggest entertainment complexes in the Moscow area just before a sold-out rock concert was about to start. What does it indicate to you, Mark, that ISIS chose this kind of large public location to attack as opposed to, say, a state or military site?
Well, Alex, this is called a soft target. And so that means there's going to be a lack of security personnel. The people are going to have their guard down. Now, incredibly, the U.S., when we provided the warning to Russia on March 7th, we actually mentioned concert halls. This presumably was from the intelligence. But when you hear about eyewitnesses from the attack yesterday, there was no security. There was absolutely no extra, people searching bags, anything to suggest that there were enhanced measures. And so ISIS is as all terrorist groups, are going to look for what's called a soft target, where they're going to get away with it. And amazingly enough, again, from eyewitness accounts, Russian security forces, police didn't respond within an hour to the attack. And so, ultimately a successful mass casualty event certainly was pre-planned, cased in advance. And again, Vladimir Putin and the Russian security services have a lot of egg on their face.